Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Miss.
That's a nice, cheerful afternoon, Cindy. Thank you. So, I sent out a little note yesterday. I'm hoping most of you would have gotten it and had a chance to think on it and are prepared to share this afternoon what you came up with. But before we go there, this afternoon, so in the last two classes, we looked at writing, right? In terms of communicating with our audiences, we looked at how we can do this effectively through writing. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit, same communicating with our target audience, but this time the use of presentations, not necessarily PowerPoint. Think of it more along the lines of how we engage with our target audiences orally, through dialogue, through speech. More common is presentation, but there are other formats. So whether they're town hall meetings, whether you are asked to speak on a specific issue, you're an invited guest or an invited presenter, all of these would account for giving a presentation of sorts. So the word presentation on this is used loosely, not to be exclusively a PowerPoint presentation, but how do you engage your audiences through your physical presence or through your oral presentations? And part of it is to motivate the masses, right? So these images here, I think we only have one non-Jamaican in the group, but the Jamaicans can definitely identify. The non-Jamaican in the group also had a very recent election. So this might not seem so strange as well, right? So on our left, we have our health ministry. That was the permanent secretary at the time, the Minister of Health, and the chief medical officer. Engaging the public, engaging the audience. This is likely to have been on one of those issues where, and it's covered by JIS, Jamaica Information Service. So from time to time, they will have to engage their audience or speak publicly on certain matters. And so this image captures one of those. Below is our debates. Typically surrounding the election season, or various politicians are asked to debate each other and speak on, or what we would prefer them to speak on is on issues that are affecting our population, things that people would be interested in, things that may sway voters. That's the intention of the debates. And so you can see the crowds there from our two major political parties. Is this very different for you, Cindy?
No, man, election jiggy.
I did see
Last election, I think
mhm,
last election was the best we had in a long time in terms of method of delivery in approach, especially from the opposition,
mhm,
and in terms of the way the audience interpreted it and listened. Most times,
mhm.
it doesn't matter what you say, they would think, but I think they're more actively listening to the
Yeah.
speeches instead of just going with the hype. So that's a good way forward.
Okay, good. Yeah. So there are some people who will definitely be swayed and who are definitely looking to the speakers to convince them. There are others, of course, tradition, they will always vote a particular way, but it is still important for our leaders to impress us and to convince us as to why we should vote for them. So the activity I gave was for you to identify someone, right here, yes. So select a public figure, whether locally or internationally. Make a list of the positive aspects of their style, in their delivery, whenever they're making a speech or a presentation. And also, so I wanted you to look at the pros as well as the cons, right? So their style, all the things that impress you about this speaker. And if, not saying that there always has to be, but were you able to detect anything that detracted or did not support effective communication that you have noticed? If you have noticed at all, is there anything, as much as you may have liked um, that speaker, for the most part, is there anything that you could pinpoint that may be a distraction or that you would say is not necessarily very effective in their style of delivery? So, who wants to go first with sharing?
Me.
Okay, all right. Cindy, ready today? Yes, Cindy, go ahead.
Yes, my person that I chose that is the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mrs. Miriam Motley. I just like listening to her giving addresses. I find that and even in interviews, I find that she's always, I would say, assertive
Mm-hmm.
in her delivery, and she always seemed well informed. Her responses are so calculated, like clear. You know what she's about, what the double meaning is. And on the other hand, she can be evasive at some point, but not disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like that she always seems so well educated, well researched in her responses, and the way that she will give calculated responses. Because if you ask a question, if you notice, she just sit back, she listens, and then she responds instead of trying to butt in while the other person is speaking, which is good.
Mm-hmm. And so you said some of the positives were she's clearly well informed or well researched on whatever it is that she's speaking about. She listens before she's responding. She's clear. What do you mean when you say she's calculated in her response?
It's like depends on the way the question is placed.
Mm-hmm.
She takes a step back and thinks about what she actually wants to say.
Okay. So she thinks before she speaks.
Yes, I that's how it come that's how she come across to me every time I
Mm-hmm.
listen to her. I could be
Okay.
wrong. On another post, listener might have a different view, but that's how
Yeah.
I see her. I just
Yeah.
love listening to her.
And then you said no. The tricky part now is that she can be evasive,
Yes.
right? But importantly, you said not
Not
disrespectful.
disrespectful.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for your assessment, Cindy.
You're welcome.
She
If
is
there's some noisy, it's not
definitely,
but I'm at work still, and I'm
say
close
that
to my
again?
I'm at work still, and I'm close to my
Oh,
neighborhood, so it might be a
okay.
bit noisy. So sorry for that.
Okay. Understand. So yes, Mia Motley is one of the most popular leaders in the Caribbean now, and I do agree with you in terms of her delivery, and she is well respected. She's on what, her third term, so clearly her people also love her. But yeah, I'm interested to hear from the others. Who did you select? Somebody else. Nobody else did the reflection? Or even if you didn't do it then, does anybody come to mind now?
Miss,
Yes,
you
Francine.
really, I didn't really go in depth, but Miss Portia Simpson Miller, Mrs. Portia Simpson Miller. I was
Mm-hmm.
looking at her as a public figure,
Mm-hmm.
and based on what you were asking,
Mm-hmm.
I think she have a very strong emotional appeal, very
Okay.
authentic when she's giving her speeches. She make it feel natural, like it's not scripted. It just flows at times, even though we know that when it comes on to like, the whole constructing with making the sentence formal and so on,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of off sometimes. Yeah. And she have a very powerful voice projection. Like, I was watching, because since I sent this, I was like watching some of her speeches, and like when she's having like her opening, everything is just clear and flowing. How she addresses her audiences, you can hear clearly what she's saying, and you
Mm-hmm.
know how it comes off. It just smooth. As I said, I didn't do much. I didn't get to do much,
You
but
didn't go in depth, but you recognize. So you gave me the positive. If I'm hearing correctly, you said one of the detractors is what was it again?
that she like sometimes when she's speaking, like
Mm-hmm.
the speech itself, like how would I would put this now? Like we always laughing at her and some talks that she make, because it just not
Mm-hmm.
come off like
Her
a
choice of
person.
words.
Yes, the choice of words.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think I know what you mean, Francine, but we're gonna go into that as well. Anybody else? Thank you, Francine. Who else thought about a public figure and would like to share their insights?
Uh, all right, so good afternoon, teacher.
More
Uh,
afternoon.
and good afternoon, my classmates. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so the person I chose was PJ Patterson. And in terms of his positive aspects, his style of delivery, his presentations or his speeches are normally seem well thought out, and it's normally very well articulated. And he uses what I researched. He said voice modulation, so varying pitch, to kind of promote, the salient points. His use of eye contact, but I want to say over his glasses, because he's known for that.
Mm-hmm.
And also the absence or lack of filler words such as ah and I was listening to quite a number of his speeches, and I did hear him say not even one. And what research said was that it may reduce the audience confidence in the speech.
Mm-hmm.
I also like his posture. So he's always standing, tall and erect when giving his speeches. And his scripts are always well rehearsed and free of mistakes. Now, the detractors I found with that would not support effective communication. One was sometimes the use of words that may not be understood by a regular person. So a layman, regular Jamaican, kind of struggled, because when I was younger, I remember I kind of struggled just listening to his presentations because some words I really did not know. And then he used to have a long pauses between his words. And that sometimes makes the speech kind of monotonous, kind of boring. But in overall, though, he's a very, very, very he has a very good style of delivery. That's in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. That was it, Simone?
Yes, this was Simone.
Okay. No, yeah, I was asking if that was it. All right. So far we've all gotten prime ministers. You realize that? There's something about prime ministers that we seem to like. Anybody else wants to share? Veronica? Go
Hi,
ahead.
good afternoon. I'm sorry I didn't see it, but the person that I really liked listening to and observing was Professor Rex Netherford. And I liked him because he had an expert command of the English language. Um, his facial expressions and his presence literally drew you in when he was doing a presentation. He could engage the audience, his tones and pauses. He had vocal gymnastics here. So he was one of the persons that I would pay to listen to. I'm sorry I didn't come up with any detracting behaviors, but just from looking at this, he would be the person I choose.
Yeah. Thank you. It's fine if you don't come up with any detractors, because again, this is your opinion. This is your observation of the speakers. It's really just to get you to look at all angles or all aspects of speeches. All right. I am gonna go ahead because we're running a little behind in time. So I have another popular person that this is allegedly, or it's claimed or known to be one of Obama's most famous, or as it says there, the speech that made him president. Because he is also well known for his skills in engaging the audience, his oratory skills, his relatability, and all these things. I want us to just watch for a little bit, um, observing again, using those same points from the reflection exercise that I gave. I want you to now listen and watch this speech, and then we can have a brief discussion. But of course, let me see. Reaccionas cuando algo importante te faltó por All right. Are you seeing?
No, miss, not seeing anything, just your screen.
Oh, you're not seeing it. Okay. All right. Let me stop sharing that. And then I will share this. Seeing it now?
Yes, proceed.
Yes, please.
All right. All right. So ask yourselves the same things that I asked you about your own observed speaker locally. Well, they kind of gave all the answers in their commentary of the speech. Any comments from you?
One comment, he was definitely able to grab the audience. So I mean, his speech was definitely well structured. It had all the things in it to just draw you to him. I think some persons naturally have that talent where they are very good at articulation, but not only that, but there's just this I'm trying to find the word. This thing about them that just kind of draws you to them. So he has that.
Called charisma.
Thank you. Yes, yes, thank you.
So people would have been drawn to him because of what Petra said in terms of charisma. But outside of the charisma, his content was pretty solid too, right? The uniting people
Yeah, it
of
completely
various.
appeal to the vulnerable population. It kind of like evoke those thoughts that persons would have had that they wouldn't even think of. He put his emotions, like he exposed himself and his history, we could say invoke empathy, and he make it sound inclusive for all.
Yeah.
When he mentioned the liberals, the no gay America, no whatever. So I think that based on what my other colleague said as well, he integrated himself in his speech, like what he was about. So doing that, he introduced what he was, who he was, along with getting the points across. So he incorporated himself to align with the thoughts that he wanted to evoke.
Yeah, and showed like his human side that he also would have faced challenges throughout his life, or that he can relate to what some people may be going through. And I think as one of the commentators said, that they felt sincerity in how he spoke, his words, and his style of delivery. Any other comments? Did we see any downsides? No.
I was so captivated what he was saying. I didn't really see much downsides in it.
So his charm, his charisma worked on you. Okay.
And mhm.
The fact that
The
he's a good-looking man helps. Yeah.
yes. So you are also looking and listening. You're keenly focused on other things and not looking for
Any
faults.
pretty thing or
Yeah. But one of the speakers or one of the commentators mentioned something, and it made me go, the use of the hands, and also the difference now in his style after he got elected. So the use of the hands, I was like, okay, yes, it energized people. It made became more animated. But when we're doing it, we have to be careful, right? Because maybe we don't have the same kind of charisma that he does. So he can get away with it. But have you ever seen speakers overuse their hands?
Yes, and then you get so distracted by the hand movement that
And especially if they're pointing a
yeah.
lot. Yeah. I'm not saying he didn't do it well, because like you all said, the other positive or strong aspects of his delivery would have made that less of an issue or less noticeable. And also, do you realize the difference based on his audience, how his style changed? Not just his audience, but his position. Because they said now that he's became the president, he was more solemn in his speeches. He was more serious, more level in his tone. So the energy and the animation would have subsided depending on where he was or who he was talking to, which is also an important point that we're going to discuss in terms of when we are engaging people, when we're delivering speeches or presentations, being aware of our environment, and being able to adjust for that environment.
And not just the environment, the audience, your audience.
Well, yes, audience, environment. Yes, definitely. All right, so let's get into the presentation. All right, so let me get rid of this on the screen. Yeah, so as we saw from his speech, we could clearly see that he was speaking the language of the community and of that setting, because it was a very diverse audience, right? Different ages, different races, people from different backgrounds. And so he would have tried to tap into trying to emotionally appeal to as many of those, or as varied an audience, including maybe his opposition party that may be listening as well. Because of course they do also listen sometimes in order to rebut or to find faults, but he's also aware of that, right? So if in communicating effectively, we need to be knowledgeable of our audience, of our setting, of who might be watching or listening, and being able to appeal to your target audience through your language. So now, some people mentioned, for example, Portia, when you mentioned Portia Simpson Miller, she was also known for her emotional appeal, for appealing particularly to a certain segment of the population, right? And that saying, you can't be all things to all men. She became pigeonholed or boxed in to say that she is solely or primarily for a certain group or a certain class, right? Which nothing is wrong with that, especially if she is representing the most vulnerable. But she was criticized for not being able to extend herself in different spheres. Now, I don't think those were all fair criticisms, but people are entitled to their own opinions. Just telling you what some of the comments or feedback on her speeches and delivery were. Somebody also mentioned Professor Rex Knuckleford and that she liked his command of the English language. Again, depending on the audience, this could also be intimidating for some, thinking that they're not able to identify with him or fit into whichever audience it is that he's speaking to, based on having that one particular style, which may appeal to one particular audience. So the audience may not, well, the diversity of the audience may not lend itself to always or being known, not to say that he's not able to, but just based on the feedback that was given, that style of speaking and command of the English language was admirable. And so, again, as much as we are good speakers and we all have good command of English language, or whatever it is, it's always good to step outside of yourself and observe your environment, your audience, who is listening to you, what it is that you're talking about, because your subject matter also lends itself to a particular style of delivery. Now, going right into your audience now. Depending on what it is that you are covering or what you're there to talk about, it's useful to take a step back and ask yourself, how do people feel? Or how does my audience, how will the people who are in this venue this afternoon or this evening, how will they perceive this topic? What's their attitude towards it? Right? What is their attitude towards HPV vaccine? Do they think it's another scam, or are they open-minded towards it? Is it something that they probably will never consider? Or am I likely to have some people who are still thinking about it in my audience? Also, what's their attitude towards you? What role do you play in that setting? Are you seen as the expert on the topic or one of? Are you expected to put, what kind of information are you expected to deliver? Are you a medical doctor that's going to be expected to explain in detail how your health is affected, or how particular organs in the body are affected by this new drug that is being promoted, right? So Also, for those who will be playing a supportive role to the speaker, if you have any influence on choosing who the speaker is, so let's say they write to your health department asking for a speaker, or write to the ministry asking for a speaker, you may also have that opportunity to step back and think, how will people receive this speaker based on your knowledge of them or based on their past experiences? Maybe they have political affiliations, and maybe they don't. Whatever it is it a setting that is male dominated, and perhaps a male speaker would be better received depending on not just the audience, but the topic. You get what I'm saying? So it's thinking about the audience is not simple. There are a lot of nuances that have to be considered to ensure that the right speaker is delivering the information, as well as understanding what your audience is interested in knowing and being able to deliver on that, right? So different audiences, some may know absolutely nothing. This might be the first time they're being introduced to this topic or this health concern. For many people, it was the first they would have been hearing about leptospirosis, because it hadn't been a widespread problem, right? Some people who become new parents, and have toddlers or have young children would have not really paid much attention to hand, foot, and mouth disease. And so they're very curious. They know very little of it. They know it exists, but what exactly is it? How does it affect children? They may not be aware of. Then you have those who know quite a bit about the topic, so they're going to be very critical about what you have to say. These persons have either heard this story before, seen this happen already. This is the same dengue that comes every year, same influenza, seasonal, whatever it is, they are knowledgeable about the topic. And so therefore, what are you coming with that's new or different? Or are you just coming to reinforce behaviors and not necessarily just increase knowledge? Because if knowledge is there already, what is your purpose for being there? Are you trying to help persons to access services? Are you trying to improve the quality or acceptability, whatever it is? If your audience is already knowledgeable, you will also have other things to consider. It's not just going there to tell them what they already know. And then you have mixed audiences where that will pose a particular challenge, because you have those that have no idea and those that do. So how do you now mix the providing of the information with being able to motivate change or action with regarding to health outcomes? Now, some of the other features that we're looking for in our target audience, ages, right? Because we know communicating with people at different age groups, in different age groups, varies quite a bit. So if we're talking to some young people in a youth group, in a school, it's different from our workplace conversations when we're asked to come and address a staff meeting or a group, a workplace environment, right? So it's important to have an idea, not necessarily of the exact ages, but where possible, where the majority of the age group lies. If it is a topic that lends itself to difference in outcomes for the sexes, it's also important to know the representation, whether more males or females, whatever it is. Don't take it for granted that just because it's a construction company that there are no women there, right? Or that it's a financial institution where that there are mostly men. Okay? Religious and cultural and racial backgrounds. Why do we need to know this? Why do you think we need to know this? I'm asking you. Why do we need to know about their religious, cultural, and racial backgrounds when we're preparing ourselves to speak to a particular audience?
Because these things inform all of the questions that you asked before, people's perception of you, how they feel about an issue. All of the things is determined in part by those kinds of details about them, ethnicity and so on. Yeah.
It's also useful in your preparation because, for example, if it's a highly religious group, then you can appeal to what some of the opinions of or what you are aware of. You can have some perception of the type, like you said, the type of questions you may get or the types of concerns that they may have. And so, knowing their religious backgrounds can help you to prepare. Cultural as well, very similarly, what are some of their cultural beliefs and practices? And beforehand, you can assess whether or not these are supportive or they go against what it is that you are trying to promote. So if it is that you're going to a Rastafarian community, where we're looking at both religion and culture here, influencing whether or not you're going to be able to convince them that vulnerable children who have underlying, or not even just vulnerable children, anybody vulnerable in the community who may have any kind of underlying illness or disease may need more than just the root, because they already have a challenge with the routine vaccinations in some instances. So now when you're coming to tell them that it's important for them to get additional vaccines because of their vulnerability, it's usually good insight to have beforehand so you can prepare to address some of those concerns and provide whatever relevant information may help them to make a decision or that might be useful in creating a better understanding of what it is that you are coming with. Somebody have their mic up. Somebody wanted to say something or add. Okay, I see in the comments, Nikki said cultural sensitivity. Is it along the lines of what I said, or you had something more specific to say, Nikki, about the cultural sensitivity aspect? Okay, all right. Same line. All right, so we also want to know their occupations because sometimes we may not know a lot or have a lot of detail about them. So if we have an idea of where they work, you can get an idea of maybe their educational background as well, because is it a skilled-based type of occupation, vocational skills? Then you might say, okay, then this person is hands-on, not stereotyping, but chances are they would not have pursued beyond tertiary, or they would not have gone as far. So you have an idea. You also know what concerns them based on their occupations, what puts them at risk if it's an occupational hazard. It's good to know that as well. Their social and economic status, because if you're making recommendations, it needs to be realistic. What can they afford? If you're talking about eating healthy foods, clearly you're going to be telling them about what is readily available and affordable, what is in season. what they can grow themselves, and not so much show them images on your slides of strawberries and grapes and broccoli and that kind of thing. You're going to be more conscious in terms of economics. As well as maybe there are issues with accessibility if they are geographically diverse in terms of not having close access to services, then you might want to be able to say whether or not what you are recommending is feasible based on availability of transportation or affordability of transportation. Okay, so two things that can help you to understand your audience before you even start to engage them. When you're doing your preparation, preparing whether it is your speech or your presentation, whatever method of engagement with your audience, ask yourself, what is my audience expecting to learn from me today? What are they expecting to get out of this presentation? Because they're not listening to you just for the sake of listening, right? They hope to gain something. There should be some benefit from you having been there and taken up the last 30 minutes to an hour of their time. What are they going to learn from your presentation that's going to be useful in improving their health, in helping them to prevent illnesses and whatever it is that you are there to, of concern, that you're there to address? How are you going to be able to help them with the information that you're providing or that the presentation that you're giving them? How will this be helpful to your audience? So two things: what are they going to learn? And how is this going to help them? That way, if you're going to be better able to appeal to your audience. So it's not ideal to just have the same thing that you go around telling everybody, because based on your audience, there may be different needs, right? Remember, we spoke about some may already be very knowledgeable, so they're not looking to learn the basics. So you need to now ask yourself what's new or different this time around, and ensure that you include that in your presentation or your speech. And how is this going to be beneficial? How is this going to help my audience? All right, so there are some standard steps in your presentation. We start from, we're leading from one to the next, right? So our introduction, that's where our background information is. This is where we introduce people to the topic of discussion, right? This is where we try to find some element of the topic that's going to be of interest to your audience. So you're introducing your topic to your audience, or your health concern, your health issue to your audience in a way that's going to be realistic or relevant to their lives. Now, next we go on to the body of the presentation, and this is now the bulk of it, where any new information. So you have the background where you tell them this is what exists, this is why it's important, this is how it's been done, this is how it was successful before, whatever it is, that's your introduction. In your body is now where you're going to provide new information or new instructions or any kind of advice, any kind of new finding that has been proven. That's going to now be in the body of your presentation. And so those three main portions, in introduction, your body, and your conclusion, are critical. Sometimes we don't have any conclusions. Should that be? No, right? Depending on what it is, sometimes it's a summary. Sometimes it's a summary of the main points that you had covered throughout your presentation or your speech. Sometimes this is where you repeat. Repetition is useful, increasing recall or knowledge. So this is where you would go over your key points or your take-home messages, the things you want people to remember the most. So maybe like the 3 most important things that you want them to either know or you want them to do. That is where you are going to have your take-home message in your conclusion. So you're either summarizing or you're making sure that people get 3, not more than 5. What are the main things? What are the most important things that you want people to take away from your speech or your presentation? We spoke about different styles in writing. Style also applies to oral communication, right? So depending on your topic or your audience, you could decide to start with a story, right? There was a little bit of storytelling in the Obama speech that we listened to when he spoke about his parents, his background, very brief, does not need to be a long story, just a brief scenario to open or introduce or to drive home the point of your discussion. You could tell a story, develop a theme, supporting a theory or a point of view. One that often is useful is also the pros and cons. A lot of times we tend to lean heavily on the pros without addressing the cons. This may have implication for your trustworthiness, especially if people are taken up with the cons. If the cons, remember we spoke about information overload and sources of information are no longer limited to mainstream media and the news item and the press releases from the ministry. Sources of information are all around and people are bombarded with it every day. So it's not useful to avoid the discussion about the cons. You can clarify whether or not these cons are substantial, how they really impact people. Are they even true? How common are they? It's usually in your best interest to address both sides. Yes, you're still going to be heavy on your pros, but ignoring your cons is not likely to result in the best outcomes all the time. Like I said, could erode your trust, your credibility may come into question, and people may just disbelieve and not accept what it is that you have to say because they're going to just see this as an agenda that you're trying to push. Illustrated lectures, that's really to break up the monotony sometimes, or to also be more demonstrative. It's good to have images, videos, audio, different methods for engaging people. Don't be as wordy as I am. Clearly, this presentation is not a good representation of a good presentation. But anyway, so illustrations are useful. If it is a health topic where a demonstration could be useful in increasing understanding or acceptability, or even increasing interest and holding the attention of the people. People love a demonstration. I teach another undergrad medical students health communication, and the audience always appreciates demonstration. So whether it is they're telling them about high blood pressure, they want a demonstration of how to check your own blood pressure. In your minds, you know what it is, but giving them all the steps, how to sit, which arm to use, how many breaths, whatever it is, patients also find this very useful and engaging, and they're always very interested in those parts of it. So know your audience, know the topic. Is it feasible to have a demonstration or not? And your demonstrations don't always have to be physically you doing it there live. It could also be a video, but it needs to be clear and it needs to be easily viewed. By that I mean, they should be able to clearly see what is taking place. All right, it wouldn't be complete if we didn't have a little activity. So again, this is just an easy one. The health topic that you're going to be speaking on, not really speaking, but preparing a speech or a presentation for, is HIV self-testing. New but not so new. It's been around for a while, but there was an official piloting in maybe 2024, 23, 24, thereabout. And so through that pilot, they would have found a lot of information, whether it's acceptable, how people feel about it, whatnot. But like with anything that is new, we need to be able to engage our audience. We need to build knowledge. We need to build skills and improve attitudes towards what it is we're promoting. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I couldn't tell when last I say all 8 people one time. 6 people on. So I'm not going to do 3 groups. I'm going to do 2 groups of 3. Right? And so your topic that you're preparing for is HIV self-testing. It's new. Let's say it's still new. And there were 3 audiences. Now there are 2. I'm going to ask one group. The group that is in room 1, breakout room 1, is going to, your audience is going to be a faith-based organization, right? So whether it's a council of churches and over an umbrella organization of faith-based leaders, right? You want to tell them about, you recognize that a lot of your clients, this is Jamaica, we're highly religious, we attend church, a lot of us are Christians, and so you want to get the church on board with self-testing, HIV self-testing. You want their support so that the congregation, because they're of course a gatekeeper, right? The other group will be engaging policymakers because we need a self-testing policy, right? So the policymakers need to be convinced that this is something we need. Remember, we already have HIV testing being done in outreach. We have HIV testing in private labs, at the clinics. Why do we even need more HIV testing? But I know all of Jamaica is tested out, right? That's what the policymakers are telling you. They also have several concerns, whether legal implications, what outcomes. There are things that policymakers are usually cautious about. Exploitation, quality of the testing, who is distributing, what is the quality control to ensure that they're not getting a false positive, what of situations where persons test themselves and they are positive, what are the avenues, what can they do, who is going to counsel them, how are they going to be linked to care, more importantly. So I've spoken a lot. Now, I'm going to ask each group to thinking of your target audience. These are the questions you're going to ask yourself based on your knowledge of them. What are their attitudes towards the topic, which is self-testing here? So what's their attitude towards self-testing? What language level should you use for your faith-based or your policymakers? Any cultural considerations that you need to think about? What are some of the objections that might arise? And what do you think they want to hear from you? I may have spoken a little too much because I realized that I may have answered some of those. But anyway, either take a little snapshot or a little jotting because I'm gonna give you 15 minutes to discuss in your group. Well, rather to discuss and answer these questions based on the topic being HIV self-testing and the audience that you're given. So people in breakout room 1, you're going to be looking at the faith-based group, faith-based organization, and or the umbrella organization. And people in breakout room 2, your audience will be policy makers. Any questions before I start your group assignments? Wonderful. No.
Is it there? Oh, okay.
This is Scott Thomas.
Yes, we are back.
Back always so quickly as we start to get in the meat of it is back to the main room.
And you get extra time. But anyway, it's just a little warm up. So let's hear it from the faith-based group. How did you tackle these questions?
Did you say something? Okay. The same thing. Okay, no problem.
Who was in the faith-based? Who had the faith-based organization as their audience?
We did, Mrs. Scott.
All right, let me hear what you came up with.
All right. So based on the questions that you would have given us, the attitudes towards the topic. So what we said is that the older audience may be a bit resistant. The persons who, probably over 50 years of age, coming from the old school kind of thing where they don't discuss those types of things in church or in a religious kind of setting. So they might be a bit resistant. However, we assumed that the younger audience, persons between 16 to 49, might be more receptive. In terms of the different so we also consider the different beliefs based on denominations. There's some, like let's say the non-denominational churches might be a little bit more open to hear what you have to say, especially regarding sex or HIV, AIDS or stuff like that, while you have some denominations that are very strict, very rigid, so they might be a little bit more reserved when it comes to those types of things. So that was it for attitudes. For the question, what language level should we use? So we discussed it and we thought that language that is simple and fitting for all ages would be appropriate and without excessive medical jargon. So persons that don't find it so hard to understand. We also suggested that the audience be broken up to into groups. So we suggested probably the women's group, the men's group, the teenagers or adolescents. And what we would do, we would tailor the language accordingly, according to the age group or the group we have. So that was it for language. For cultural considerations, what we said was that in some churches or religious based organizations, discussion on sex is still considered kind of taboo. So, with HIV/AIDS, you have to get into the discussion of sex because as HIV is spread through sex. So we were saying that discussion on sex might be taboo, and we would definitely have to consider that when doing our presentation. Objections that might arise now. So it's been a faith-based organization. We're saying that you might have persons being reluctant to discussing issues of sexual intercourse. Some churches that word is not mentioned at all. So we might have a few objections, especially among the older adults. And then the younger ones might be, some parents might be a bit reluctant to have their younger children listen to certain topics, especially these conflicts. They might have objections from some parents regarding their children. And finally, what does this audience expect to hear? We discussed it and we said their expectations would be they'd want to know what exactly is a HIV self-testing kit. They'd want to know how do you access it, how do you use it. They'd probably love for you to probably do a demonstration for them just to show them how it is done. They'd like to know if there are any possible side effects that may result from them using it, and how soon would the results be available? So how soon can they expect to get some feedback from this test kit? All right, so that was us, Mrs. Scott.
All right, thank you, Simone.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
so you did drive home quite a few of the issues based on the questions that you answered. I don't know how many 50-year-olds will be happy with you right now, saying that they are the older in the church, but that's okay. The 49s will be happy though to hear you call them the younger. But that aside, the use of the non-medical jargon for sure in terms of the language. The objections, attitude, and the culture are kind of intertwined for me. And I think you mentioned quite accurately that the topic of sex is taboo, often taboo. You don't necessarily discuss it openly in church, in some churches at least. And there are very specific teachings and principles about sex. So I thought you would have had stronger objections, because if the church is teaching abstinence, right, that means you wouldn't or shouldn't be exposed to HIV because you're not having sex till you're married. And then if you are married, you're supposed to be monogamous. You're supposed to be faithful, right? So in my mind, I thought you were going to tell me that the church would think this is unnecessary. But maybe it's an open-minded church that recognizes the reality of their congregation. But yeah, it can be a lot more fiery, the discussion. I don't think it's going to be as simple as you say, or as easy a topic to discuss with a religious group, especially given how strict, like you said, some are. But yes, I agree with what you said in terms of how, mentioning some of the issues that are likely to arise. So yes, thank you to Room One. I didn't name you any group, but Room One. In the interest of time, I'm going to roll on into the second room for the policy makers.
That room is closed, Miss
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we're done with the policymakers. And my teammates will jump in as they feel appropriate as I run through, right? So what are the attitudes of the policymakers? Obviously, we feel that self-testing can be beneficial. We do need people to know what their HIV status is, and we want to match that against them knowing, or that knowing taking place in a safe space. And what safer space than in the privacy of your own home? So on the face of it, we're open to self-testing and promoting self-testing and having self-testing form a part of our package of things that we're offering to the public. However, we do have concerns or considerations around matching privacy considerations with having people being linked to care. So yes, you go home, you get your kit, you go home, and you take your test, you're positive, then what happens? Do you retreat into the home, or do you, what are the steps? How do you move into care? So we have that consideration there as policymakers. And then there's also, among other things, concerns around the efficacy of the test. So the business of false positives and false negatives, and then how people now need to reconcile those things. Also having people understand that when you do the home test with the home test kit, we are going to need you to go get a gold standard test done. And so again, that's a part of the consideration and informs how we feel about it. So we're open to it, we want it, it is beneficial, but we understand that there are some friction things happening. In terms of what the language level is, we felt it should be technical. Obviously, you're talking to policymakers, so they understand in the main the material. We also want to be professional. Certainly, we want to be very clear about what it is that we're doing. And sort of woven into that language is being strategic. So yes, self-testing is good, but there are these considerations about privacy and being linked into care and the efficacy of the test. Therefore, how do we reconcile those issues? In terms of cultural considerations, the first group would have alluded to it. The fact of them being a faith-based set of stakeholders is one of the considerations in terms of our culture. We said Jamaica have more churches per square mile than any other place in the Caribbean. So the faith community, we have to think about what their set of attitudes and issues are with this. Also, drug use is something else that we might want to contemplate or consider in terms of our cultural considerations. And then sexual behaviors linked to issues around infidelity, linked to our perceptions around, LGBTQI community members, and maybe HIV is a LGBTQI kind of a thing. So in looking at these issues, we would want to take consideration of that as well. And then what objections may arise, we alluded to them. How are the kits to be administered? How do we deal with the false negatives or the false positives? Should adolescents have access to the kit? How do we ensure seamless linkage to care? How do we safeguard against loss to follow-up? How do we make considerations for people's mental health? So where you are being administered a test in a public facility or in an approved facility in the public, if you get a negative result, an immediate intervention can happen in terms of your mental health, wellness. Somebody can say, all right, we just want you to have a seat. We're going to have a counselor come and talk to you. When you're at home doing your own self-test, that option is not available to you. And so that mental health piece is also something that we would want to consider and might be one of the reasons why we would object to sort of wholesale self-testing kits being made available or widely available. And then what does this audience expect to hear? Well, we are policymakers. We want solutions. We want to know how we're going to fix all of these various considerations that we have put on the table, right? So we need to sort out the business of access. We need a clear set of steps in terms of what is to happen between from the person getting the kit, where they're supposed to get it. Is it going to be freely available to them? Do they have to pay some money for it? Is it in the public system or is it a private system, or all of those things about access? Clear public education and awareness campaign effort to accompany that, so people again know that once you get the results, you're gonna have to go do the gold standard test just to be sure, 100% sure that this is in fact what your result is. And then depending on what the result is, if it's positive, you can be appropriately linked into care and so on. And that would have been the final point, a clear mechanism for persons to be linked into care. And so in doing the speech or the presentation on this, these are the things we would want to be, the pulse points we would want to be touching on.
All right. Whew. And you said you needed more time? What were you gonna, I think you.
Well, you should have heard Nikki and Veronica. They were talking about the
Lord.
solutions, how we're gonna fix it, all the things.
Yeah, very, very thorough, well thought out. I think you really hit all the topics, all the issues on this one. Looking through the lens of the policymaker, maybe because some of you are so intimate with policymakers as well as with HIV, so you might, have that ammunition as well. But I do agree. I do think you did very clearly. You probably were going to get to it, but a concern would also be, how do we deal with or reduce likelihood of coercion? So like forcing people to have a self-test done, what safeguards are being put in place for domestic violence if it's done at home and with your partner. There's
Partner see
no
the results in the
data.
bin. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So are you likely to be incited? How's that managed? How is coercion? So for example, if employers decide that they want, so if I have somebody working in my home as taking as a caregiver, am I going to force them to take a test? Whatever. But anyway, you guys handled it very well. So I'm just gonna go right ahead with the rest. So in cases where data is being presented, sometimes we're so intimately acquainted with our data that we forget that our audience doesn't necessarily have that same knowledge based as us or our peers. And so thinking about how to make your data simple enough for people to understand. Also, you have those who are very knowledgeable and they're going to question your data. So, how solid really is your data? Can you really stand by the data that you're producing? If you can't stand by it, leave it out. Anything that you are not confident in reporting, avoid it unless you are asked. And the rule is always if you are asked, it is better to say that you don't know or that you're going to get the additional information. You will contact whichever sources, whatever it is, right? Conclusions that are being drawn based on the data that you're providing, ensure that they're grounded in facts, right? And they're not just opinions and perceptions and theories that are arising from the data. But what is your data proven? How robust was your methodology? Can you confidently say that you are sure about what you are saying? And what else? So you may have interpreted your data. How else might others be looking at your data or interpreting it, right? Another tip, if you are delivering a speech, sometimes it helps people to follow or to stay focused and I think when we were watching the video, somebody said like 3 things that Obama did well, and he named them. Or some people might say, do it sequentially, like first, second, finally. So, you can follow the conversation, you're able to itemize order, um, the way how things are framed and phased, it's logical sequencing. So that sometimes help. Repetition, of course, is useful in reinforcing the information. And then another hint or tip is when you have certain points of information that you really want people to focus on, or if you feel like people are drifting a bit in specific areas that you think are important, you can drop these little cues. It can't be overemphasized. The most significant point is, and if you want to summarize, or my 5 main points, going back to the enumerating your steps. Those tend, especially if you have a long speech, tend to keep people or bring them back if they're straying, keeping them engaged or bringing them back when they are straying. So another tip, saying some people may not know is frowned on. It becomes habitual, but you're assuming ignorance of your audience. And they may be, but they don't necessarily need to be reminded or highlighting that deficit, right? If you know that people don't know, just say it. Say what it is that you want to say. You don't have to start off by saying some people may not know. What value does it add? I don't know. Language, we said it before, depending on your audience, you may need to simplify. When you're talking to your policymakers, yes, use a technical language because that's what they're accustomed to. That's what they're expecting. So always gauge your audience when you're deciding on the language that you use. Don't be a show off. Don't be too arrogant. Don't show off that you're this great orator and you used to be in the debate club and the speech and drama club. And so therefore it becomes a performance or because there is limited or the knowledge of the topic may not be so wide and you are one of the very few experts that it just goes to your head, right? And be selective with jokes. You may not share the same sense of humor. There are things that you might think or find funny that may also be offensive to others. So be very careful, run them by others if you need to, but be very selective with the jokes. Jokes are useful. It helps to disarm people. It helps to get people to relax. But please be cautious with jokes.
Mrs. Scott
Nonverbal.
Thomas?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I know we're running out of time, but I think I wanted to just raise this point. Maybe it's a discussion point that we could probably pick up next time, or I'll just say what it is.
Yes.
And it came up when you mentioned Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller earlier and the kind of apparent, inability, some would say, to sort of move into different spaces and be as effective. I think one of the points to note is that while you adapt to your audience in terms of your language and so on, you really should not necessarily try to change who you are at your core. So if you are inclined to be like a more relaxed speaker, you want to look people in the face, whatever is your kind of unique style, that is not the thing that you're trying to change. You're not changing who you are, but you like I say, you kind of adapting to the needs of your audience, but not your core person. And I think maybe it is my observation in Mrs. Simpson Miller's case that people sometimes judge her through that lens, that they wanted her to change who she was at her core. And I feel that in the end, that made it become very ineffective in some audiences. If you're not a speaky, spokey, technically is kind of a person, I think that's perfectly fine. You can deliver your material in just the same way to whichever audience. You just need to be who you are. Don't try to be stuffy if you're not a stuffy person. And it's the same thing, I think, coming out here, kind of the overperformance in some segments, depending on what is happening. Be who you are at your core, but be sensitive to what your audience or who your audience is.
Yeah. And it will show to Peter because people are not fools. They're going to recognize that you're not authentic. If your comfort level might not be the same, you may end up not being as effective as you would being who you are, speaking from a level of confidence and comfort, because it is the way you naturally speak or communicate.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so it may just go against you when you're trying to put on a show for others. But yes, thank you for adding that as well, because I think she definitely suffered quite a bit of harsh criticism, especially because of what you said. So, nonverbal cues, we know what those are. They can be good and bad, right? We recognize sometimes we're not even conscious of them. I tend to do this sometimes, and then I recollect and say, all right, no, too many hands, right? Then the verb I said nonverbal, but somebody spoke about the vocal fillers and how sometimes those can also make you not appear knowledgeable. Similar with nonverbal, if you have a tendency to look up, some people have a tendency to close their eyes when they're speaking to you. Like they're thinking, so they're closing their eyes. So all of these cues can be read differently from people, right? And sometimes it detracts from your message. I know somebody who chuckles when he's nervous, and he could be talking about the most serious thing. He's a medical doctor and he's talking about heart disease, and he's talking about patients dying, and he chuckled a bit. No, that's it's a verbal cue here. However, you're speaking about a topic that is very sensitive, very serious. You have to try and be conscious of those things as well. So your body language, your tone of all of these things, people are picking up on them, especially now in the age of social media, that you can't live that down. Before you know it, there are 500 comments about what people would have observed. So we have to be very careful. How you look, right? Your style of dress. Again, based on where you are, who you're speaking to, what is the acceptable mode of dress, your hair, even your makeup and jewelry selection, if you're gonna appear to be overdressed to the point where your audience is not going to necessarily be related. You're going into a farming community, you're expected to go out in the fields and you have on your high heels and your pearls and your all kind of fandangas, and it's hot and sweaty and your makeup is just running, right? So be aware of that.
But your pearls give you confidence.
Pearls give you confidence, Peter?
Yes, make you feel
What?
comfortable
Just
when you're out the field.
Or maybe that's your signature, so people will
Right,
say, "Oh, it's
exactly.
Peter with the pearls." They won't think of it anyway. If you didn't wear it, then
Amen.
ask what happened. But yes.
Yes, yes.
So this picture down here, Kirk Franklin had gotten quite a bit of backlash from, I don't remember which, was it Fun in the Sun? Big gospel concert, and he came down, and my man had on cut off jeans, or that looked like shorts, and what we would have called a marina at a gospel concert.
Cultural
And
realities.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we know that, especially every time we see Kirk Franklin, or most times him have on a suit, dressed to the nines, shine shoes, everything, three-piece suit, whatnot. We also know that culturally, we have what we call church clothes. So even though the audience might not have looked to the extreme spectrum of churchiness, they would have been conservative for the most part, right?
Miss
No.
Scott. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead, my dear. Go ahead. Finish up what you were
So
saying.
he shows up looking like it's a beach party fete, like one of those Heroes Weekend kind of things. So they were not happy and there was whole heap of complaints. He did apologize and he did say that his they don't always select their own clothing, that his designer figured that because it's Jamaican, it's a tropical climate
Yeah,
and a country where
yeah,
people are comfortably dressed,
yeah.
that was the reason for his selection of clothing. Yes, Simone, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, man. So what you just said, that was what I was about to comment on because I'm thinking that, he was saying coming to Jamaica, the time is hot, people kind of dress down, the kind of beach kind of setting. But my challenge, was not with the way he was dressed. My challenge
Oh,
was
you
the
were
way
one
he
of
was
them, Simone?
behaving. No,
You
hold
were
on,
there?
because no, I wasn't there, but it became
Okay.
this big thing that everybody heard about. So I did some research, looked at what, happened on the particular night. And my issue was not with the way he was dressed. My issue was the way he was behaving. And he was muscling up on the stage, and I'm saying, what is that for? So I
Okay, I
guess
didn't go
it
that
would
far in my
fall.
research.
Yeah, man. So I guess it would fall under body language where you have poses, body movements, gestures. Yeah, man, it
Yeah.
never go on good with where I'm there going with at all.
Oh boy.
And
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
all know that Jamaicans like the conservative Christian, not anybody who is
Yeah.
seeming to be carrying on. Yeah, poor
Yes.
Kirk Franklin, he didn't know.
Yeah,
Now he
he got a
does.
wake-up call and he was good enough to apologize for notice quote unquote disrespectful clothing. Yeah, so again, just driving home the point, your dress, your choice, your selection of clothing, how you put yourself together also sends a message. How you sound, I think this is one of the most obvious. Don't bore people to death with your monotone voice that shows no emotion, no inflection, no feeling. You're just like you're reading a script. Engage people. Articulate, pitch. People need to hear you. People need to be able to understand what you're saying. So not too fast, not too slow. Maybe you have to practice. You may have to do it in front of the mirror or have a friend, family member, or colleague listen to you and give you some feedback. The vocal fillers, like you said, somebody said it earlier that, was it PJ? Didn't use much vocal fillers, and for her, that represented his knowledge and confidence. So I agree with you. I struggle with them too. because sometimes I'm thinking while or before I speak. And so rather than the empty pause, I might say, but yeah, avoid them. They're not encouraged at all. Your eyes, look at the people when you're speaking to them. Sometimes because you're nervous and fearful, you may look straight to the back of the room, but just be mindful that definitely you're not turning your back to people. You need to face your audience. You need to look at them. You need to look around the room. Don't just stay like a statue and looking at that one point in the back. You're nervous. You're going to have to work on different methods of getting over that fear, slowing down, relaxing, deep breaths before. So that you can help to calm down your nerves and pace your speech and your breathing, limit the hand gestures, your posture. Somebody also said that's what they liked about PJ, that he stood upright, straight, and confident. So that's always a good thing. Make sure you sip your liquids. Those are just other little tips. You
What is that?
may have,
Sorry,
yes,
what is that?
yes.
Try to force a yawn. What is that? It's under the sip liquids
Where?
piece.
The
It
sip liquid.
says, yeah, it says try to
Oh,
force a
oh.
yawn. Yeah.
It
I've
is
never heard
supposed,
of
this
that
is
one.
not while you're speaking though, you know.
No, man, no.
Yes,
Yeah.
apparently it's supposed to relax your jaw muscles and it is one of
Oh,
those methods that the public speakers say that it helps them. You see some of them doing like jaw, in addition to
okay.
vocal exercises, they do facial, different things like that. Support. Apparently it's supposed to relax your jaw muscles.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I learned that one too. I had the same question. All right, so definitely we don't do DVD and CD no more. So maybe we have a QR code that people can scan for more information. Maybe we have a link that people can access our website on. Maybe we have, so whatever is available, relevant for the times, that's how you are going to share additional information. Some people still like good old paper, so the handouts will still be useful. However, sometimes it's not enough just to do a speech. Sometimes you will have other aids because of the nature of what you're presenting. You may have graphs, you may have images, you may have demonstrations that you need to show persons. So you are the best visual. Do you agree? This is why we talk about how you dress and how you look and how you stand and all of these things. Your visual aids should be relevant. So you're not going to put things just because you want to dazzle your audience, because they're attractive, because so you're not going to have music that is distracting and not relevant to your or fits in or ties in with what it is that you have to say. Test again, rehearse, go over, read it till, because we don't want you to be there reading from a slide or turning your back just to look up at what is on the board, right? Talk to them so that people feel like it's a conversation in many instances. Technology, again, my other class that I teach, they do an actual live presentation with patients in the clinic. And let me tell you that TV has let them down a few times. So this one I can tell you, make sure you practice with your equipment. Make sure you have a backup copy of the hard copy of so that you can still deliver regardless of not having your aids. Do not allow yourself to be thrown off completely when technology fails, right? Practice, ensure that you know how to use the equipment or you have quick access to the person that is able to solve or troubleshoot any issue or problem that you're likely to face. We know these already. By this time, we would have heard enough about not having wordy or crowded slides and ensuring that our spelling and grammar is correct. If we're giving out paper, make sure the printing is legible. Make sure that the ink in the toner is good and it's not faded and people have to strain their eyes, or that you had the papers in the cabinet for 10 years and now they're dingy, crumpled, and dirty looking, right? None of those are acceptable. Always have a plan B in case of failures with the equipment, or if you have left your script, the hard copy, you must have a soft copy somewhere, whether on your phone. Thank goodness we have phones these days that are like mini computers. Always have backup copies and plan B, because like they say, when Murphy's Law, whatever can will happen.
Mrs. Cox?
Yes.
Yeah, regarding visuals, I'd like to add one more thing to that. The use of too many transitions in your slide, they can become
Yes.
very distracting.
Yes. So 1 minute it's fading in, the next minute fading up, then it boom appear, then it, the bouncing one, that's my least favorite. So yes, thank you for that one. Definitely. When it comes to your slides, be cautious about that. Now, questions sometimes make us nervous and might throw us off, so it's always good to prepare ahead of time. Just as we did in that exercise, you can sometimes try to think about what are some of the likely oppositions that I may get, or some of the questions that I may get. And so you're able to prepare yourself, but you won't always know what's coming to you. So you need to be able, tell yourself from the get-go that you're not necessarily going to always have the answers. Listen carefully if you need to repeat those questions. The KISS method, keep it short and simple. And don't be defensive. That one is hard sometimes. However, sometimes people are really trying to throw you off and really there are people who will come to these occasions or these venues or these events to try and create mischief. And so you getting defensive is exactly what they would have wanted, because they're trying to throw you off to make you not appear as credible or knowledgeable. And limit your time. Nervousness, prepare. Nothing beats managing nervousness like preparation. You're more nervous when you're unprepared. Know your topic, know your material in and out. Practice, practice, practice. If it's something you're passionate about, you're more likely to be comfortable to deliver it confidently. We're not always going to be passionate about everything. So in those cases, we just have to keep practicing and ensuring that we have a firm grasp of the information, we understand it. So know your subject. I don't know how many people are going to agree with this one. Fear energizes you. Does it? Fear of the unknown, fear of being stared at, fear of failure, fear of rejection. We've all had these at different points. But what this is trying to say is that be motivated by the fear. Because you don't want to fail and you don't want the embarrassment, you're going to ensure that you are prepared so that you can minimize the likelihood of embarrassment or failure, right? So that's the energizing you get from the fear. You are fearful and you are nervous. How are you going to manage that? Preparation and practice, making sure that you are knowledgeable. When that fails, your breathing pauses are important. Breathe, count to 10 before whatever you do to calm yourself. Even if you want family or friends there in the room, it's always good to have support. If that, some people rather not, because for them, it extends the number of people who have witnessed your embarrassment, but that is up to you what works. So these are pretty much some additional tips of how you can overcome the fear, knowing that nobody's perfect and that even the greatest of speakers would have made mistakes at some point. in their career, and that the more you do it, the better you get at it. So each time that you have to do one of these speeches or presentations, you should only be getting better the next time. Getting your audience involved also helps to ease the tension in the room, finding a friendly face. Think humorously, but again, that caution about the joke. We don't all have the same sense of humor, but humor is always good in relieving tension. And finally, Murphy's Law, expect the unexpected problems. Bring along a colleague or friend. This is not exactly what he said, but support that's the point. Have support, have your backative, as Jamaicans would say. Bring your sense of humor, and you should. Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. Be able to laugh at yourself, right? Because we all make mistakes. Don't be too hard. I know it's easier said than done, but remember that nobody's perfect, even though they may appear to be. You just have not witnessed their imperfections. Be easier on yourself and be able to laugh at yourself. And that is it for this afternoon. We went over time, but did we really go over time? Because we started late. We started late because I was waiting to make sure that I had quite a group, well, a big enough group to start with. All right, that is it for today. Any words before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to say regarding fear, what works for me is
Mhm.
I as a Christian, the word says that God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So whenever I have an interview, whenever I have a big speech, what I do, I rebuke the spirit of fear because it's not from God. And I
Mhm.
feel much better going into the interview or going to give that speech.
Mhm. And do you repeat that same thing? Because sometimes it's good to repeat to remind
Oh yes,
yourself.
the scripture, definitely.
You repeat the scripture. Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Yes. Anybody else want to share their method? How do you overcome that fear?
If I just like to add my little bit. So
Mhm.
for me, I I'm comfortable with people generally. And I
Mhm.
try to imagine what it is like sitting in the audience and how I would like to be engaged as it relates to um, doing presentations using PowerPoints. One of the things I learned early is that the slides, the PowerPoint itself is my visual aid. So
Mhm.
I am the presenter. I have the knowledge. I am the person passing it on. So I shouldn't depend. And there are techniques. And there's the thing that I was introduced to called this guy did a TED talk, how to prevent death by PowerPoint. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Very
Mhm.
helpful. I
Mhm.
think so. It really speaks to how the psychology of the content and the volume of content and how the brain works with great concerns retaining and receiving information on a slide.
Mhm.
So persons can utilize that as a good guide to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nikki is recommending, guys, if you can, take some time to view that TED Talk, Death by PowerPoint. Thanks, Nikki. All right, guys, I'm gonna release you so you can at least get a break before, well, some of you may have another class, some may not. But have a good weekend and we will meet again on Tuesday.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Mhm.
You too, Mrs. Morris. Teacher? Teacher?
Hi, Simone. Sorry.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm trying to finish my homework. Yes,
Okay, cool,
ma'am.
cool.
Is the health
What?
economics you're asking about?
Oh no, no, Mrs. Spin, not that. Mm-mm. I wanted
How
to
come you
ask
don't
you,
do it?
you do quality,
If I do what?
qualitative research.
Yeah, man, that's the homework I'm talking about. But how come you
Is
don't the
that a
health economics? Everybody in the general stream need to do it.
what?
Yeah. On the me
Health
tell you
economics?
yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, man, I'm positive. Let me look. I trying to find the paper again. Yeah, man. Yeah, everybody in the general stream have to do health econ. It's one of the
No, man,
prerequisites.
hold on.
Yeah,
What
man.
in the world? No, Peach, remember that there were some changes to the there were changes to the timetable, you know.
What I
So,
mean?
yeah, man, you never got the email, never saw the email in the group.
No.
Yes, man. So they've revised the timetable. So there were a few changes. So you can, alright, I'll forward it. I'll forward. Let me see now. How can I get that to you? I can probably forward it to you. The changes.
What is Simone saying?
There were changes to the timetable, Veronica.
So we don't have health econ this
No,
evening?
it had changed. No, it had changed to
No,
HPA. What HPA
health econ won't
mean?
start till the second week of March.
Oh,
Oh,
What is
God,
H? What
Sister
HPA mean?
Sebastian.
Sebastian.
Health
Is
promotion administration.
that's the one.
Right. So they're going to be having that this evening instead of HECON.
Oh,
that
okay.
is just for health promotion persons, right?
Yes,
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 I
ma'am.
that's what
think
required.
Yes,
so.
Name
ma'am.
of
Yes.
Jesus. Thank you,
Oh, God
Lord.
is good in Veronica.
Amen. Amen. Oh God. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. I mean, I just overheard this conversation and I am so happy I did. Thank you so much, guys.
Simone,
You're
updated
welcome.
timetable. Desperately need that. I
Yeah,
never
man,
got it.
I'll send it to you. I'll forward it to you.
All right.
Mhm.
Listen, but what were you gonna ask me?
Oh, I was going to ask you about the homework that we have due, the other
Yeah,
one, the one with the
the
teacher,
QR. Yeah.
the QR plus the one that teacher gave us the extension.
No, I did it
The
already. I
health
submitted it to her though.
You do it already? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
man. You mean for health
Awesome.
communication?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
because
yes.
the week was turning out. Remember, we had the health management piece. So after I left the
Oh,
class on
yeah.
Friday, I tried to finish. I think I submitted it to her maybe Saturday or Monday. Or I submitted it
Oh,
to her
I
already. Yeah, man.
see.
So hurry up and do it.
Yes, man, man, hurry up, man. But I have so much because I
I
need to finish
know.
the quality, and then I need to send off that homework. Plus, we have a homework due for her one next week, March
Yeah, for
6th.
March 6th. Yeah,
So
yeah.
we
That's the
definitely
piece to do the
wanna
feature
finish it.
story.
Right, right,
I haven't
right.
started that one yet, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're okay with it though, the one for the thing. The
The
health
one that I have
communication.
outstanding, health
Yeah,
communication.
you're okay,
Um,
right?
I think I need to do some more research on it. She had the
Mm-hmm.
presentations were uploaded, you know.
I'm not sure.
Listen to me, Petrie. If I have
Yeah.
no problem, I'll call you or text you.
Yes. All right. No problem. No problem.
Yes,
All right.
yes,
All
yes.
right. Later. All right. Later,
All right,
everybody.
my dear. Take care. Cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop off of here then. Bye.
Yeah, man. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Cool.
Have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks, Simone.
Bye.
Yeah, man. Take care, my dear.